A crowd of almost 3,500 were at Aldershot to witness a dramatic finish. In the last minute, Mark Frampton's header settled their tie against Wimbourne, who won the Vase in 1992. The celebrations were underway, and seconds later the final whistle carried Aldershot into the last 8. Well, today they were rewarded with a home tie against Atherton Burnham Rovers of Manchester in the quarter-finals. Newbury, 3-0 winners at Hinckley Athletic on Saturday, must travel again. They're away at Taunton.
Newbury Town and Aldershot Town have both reached the quarter-finals of the FA Vase. A great achievement for Newbury, a remarkable one for Aldershot, a club that simply refuses to lie down and die.
In March 1992, the padlocks went on at the recreation ground. Aldershot Football Club was out of business and out of the Football League. Less than 2 years on, nearly 3,500 people are in the ground to see Aldershot Town, the non-league club that arose from the old club's ashes, play Wimbourne in the FA Vase. Diodora League matches here attract gates some Football League sides would envy. And after promotion last year, there's a driving ambition here to see the name Aldershot in the Football League again.
I don't think it's ambitious. I think all people need to set targets. We as a company have set our targets. We haven't set them high. The target is 6-year Vauxhall Conference, 10-year Football League.
Ordinary fans' generosity was astonishing under the old regime, and it's been continued with the new club. This cheque presentation on Saturday took the amount donated by supporters this season to £14,000.
We had a poor side for the last few years, really struggled, but there was a hardcore support. But it goes to show that success at any level will bring the fans in, and that's what we have here.
Saturday's match brought generosity of another kind. This challenge from Wimbourne's Mark Allen saw him sent off. Wimbourne won the Vase 2 seasons ago, and keeper Kevin Leonard kept their 10 men in this year's competition. But even he couldn't stop Mark Frampton's 89th minute goal, which put Aldershot through to the last 8. Today's home draw means a fairy tale visit to Wembley is more than just a pipe dream.
We're hoping for a cup final between Aldershot and Newbury.
Newbury and Aldershot are through to the quarter-finals of the FA Vase. Tomorrow, Aldershot are at home to the Manchester side Atherton, while Newbury's match at Taunton has been postponed and put back until next Saturday. Well, just 2 years ago, Aldershot played their last match as a Football League club at Cardiff, but the reformed and renamed Aldershot Town are enjoying phenomenal support. Crowds of more than 2,000 are almost routine for a side in Division 2 of the Diodora League. Newbury Town are in the same division as Aldershot. The Berkshire club has been transformed since the arrival of Martin Diener. He's a wealthy businessman with a personal fortune based on the oil industry. Now he's actively involved in managing a club with its sights on the Vauxhall Conference and, of course, Wembley. Well, joining me in the studio this evening, the men leading Newbury and Aldershot, Martin Diener, the Chief Executive of Newbury Town, and Terry Owens, the Chairman of Aldershot. Terry, starting with you, what's the feeling in Aldershot on the eve of the big game?
Well, the feeling in Aldershot is that the game in the Vase is an important game, both to the town and the borough as a whole. But at the end of the day, it's promotion the fans want, and it's promotion I as chairman want, and the manager, Steve Wignall. But the Vase, for the fans, is a wonderful competition to be in. It's probably one of the best non-league competitions to actually be in. So it's our first year in the FA Vase, and if we get promotion into Division 1 next year, we won't have the opportunity of appearing in the Vase again. So it's our first and hopefully only time we'll appear in the Vase, and if we go all the way to Wembley, then that would be superb. And speaking of Wembley, I recently sold my business to Pan Graphics, who are just down the road from Wembley, and I now look out my office and I can see the Twin Towers of Wembley, so maybe there's an omen there.
Wonderful, we hope so. Well, we can actually see the goal, I think, which earned you a place in the quarter-final, 1-0 against Wimbourne. I mean, what would it mean to you? You say the league is important, but it must mean a heck of a lot to go to Wembley if you do.
Well, like I said, we're probably only going to get the only opportunity probably in the next 10 years of really reaching the goal of Wembley. So it's important to the club, yes. It's important to the players.
Town.
It's important to the town, and we've got an excellent team. We've got a great bunch of players, and Steve Wignall is a superb manager at this level. And I think that with Steve's expertise and the super players we have, if we win tomorrow's game, it's very important to win it. But if we do win tomorrow's game, then perhaps over 2 legs, the club could probably beat any team that's left in the competition over 2 legs.
Well, Newbury are rivals, both in the league and in the same competition. Martin Diener, I mean, you're a football fan of years gone by, really. What makes you support a place like Newbury?
Well, it's a local team to me. It's 12 miles away from where I live. Football is a very tribal sport, and its following is generally from the local community, and it's the nearest non-league club to me. And I was asked.
Now you've got a lot of former Reading players in your team, haven't you? I think we can see players like Martin Hicks, Stuart Bevan and Steve Richardson in action on the training field. But you've put a lot of money into the side yourself. I mean, how can you finance a team made up of players like this?
Well, the finance comes from the gate and an amount of capital that we chose at the beginning to capitalise the company with. The town hasn't had a successful football team for a long, long time, if ever. It isn't like Aldershot, where it's got a long history of successful competitions. And so it was really a cold standing start that we went from, and we decided that for 3 years we'd support it with a certain amount of money. We would do it in a certain way, in that there's a misconception to a degree that we pay a lot of money. The money side is one where we've decided to spend capital to get to a position where we can see whether the town of Newbury wants to support a successful
and let's hope they do.
Yeah.
What happens finally, just very briefly, if you do meet at Wembley?
I think it'll be a very good game.
That'd be great, but what Aldershot have done today is we've done a superb deal with Dating Tech in Aldershot, 100 yards from the club. We've probably got the best sponsorship deal outside the professional game of football. We've done that deal today.
Fantastic.
It's worth £70,000 over 3 years. That's Dating Tech, 100 yards from where the club's based.
Great, you heard it first here on Meridian.
Aldershot face a replay at Atherton after Saturday's goalless draw in front of a crowd of over 4,000 at the recreation ground. It was a bruising match in which Aldershot's Mark Butler was sent off and Paul Shrub's shot was one of the few on target.
The two clubs were attempting to settle this quarter-final for a third time, and Aldershot had their chances early on. In all, 11,000 fans watched the three meetings between these two non-league clubs, and most of them were from Hampshire. The tie had been goalless for 4 hours in the two previous meetings, but Atherton scored a goal in each half. The second, this header from Dave Liptrot, secured their place in the semi-finals. There were no complaints from Aldershot, and their goal now is promotion from Division 2 of the Diodora League.
But our road started a fortnight ago with Aldershot and the preliminary qualifying round.
In 1987, in the first ever promotion playoffs, Aldershot beat Wolverhampton Wanderers, home and away.
Now Mazel. Back to McDonald.
Aldershot were promoted, Wolves condemned to another season in the 4th division. And where are they now? Wolves in Division 1, with a spanking new palace of a stadium and their own millionaire. But within 5 years, Aldershot had died, largely unlamented. A new club, Aldershot Town, was born, joined Division 3 of the Diodora League, and against all odds, prospered. Promotion in successive seasons has been the reward for an act of faith that takes some explaining.
Aldershot Football Club is in my blood, and I mean that in very sincere fashion. So therefore it was not a problem to work 24 hours a day to serve the new club, as it wasn't a problem to serve 24 hours a day for the old club when it was in trouble. So it's inbuilt in me. I'm a staunch Aldershot supporter. I've had offers to get involved with other clubs, not interested. And if Man United came in for me tomorrow, I wouldn't be interested, because this is the club I want to work for.
Now in the 1st division of the Diodora League, Aldershot Town are adjusting to the experimental kick-in as an alternative to the throw-in. Except that in concentrating on their first ever FA Cup tie, they have to put that to one side. For Steve Wignall, a player in those famous games against Wolves, it's all part of the learning process he's undergone in taking over a new role.
Well, I think as a manager, you have high standards, and you obviously want those standards adhered to, but as far as the wages go, there's no comparison whatsoever. I had lads on £15–20 a week, and I still have got players on that sort of money, because at the end of the day, it was the finances that killed the club before. But on the field of play, obviously, I've tried to do as professional as possible.
The draw takes Aldershot to Salisbury to play Bermerton Heath Harlequins of the Jewson Wessex League. A record gate is confidently predicted. The previous best was 450. The Harlequins were formed 5 years ago, amalgamating 3 previous clubs. Now they run 13 teams, backed by a thriving social centre. The members built it, just as they now look after the whole ground. The only full-time employee is Steve Slade, the club steward, who doubles up as first 11 manager and still from time to time as player too.
I'm trying very hard not to play. The old knees are beginning to ache a bit. But yeah, if we're short, then yeah, I'll still turn out.
What are the real problems for a manager at this level?
Unavailabilities. For instance, at the start of the season, the opening game, we had 14 players unavailable for the first and second team through holidays, injuries and other commitments, i.e. weddings, which make it very frustrating and a bit of a headache.
The early exchanges must have pleased Steve Slade. Alan Bundy's header testing Phil Burns in the Aldershot goal. Still goalless midway through the half when Scott Kemmis stretches for an interception and brings down John Humphrey. Dave Osgood takes the captain's responsibility, Aldershot ahead. The Harlequins then pay full price for a header that doesn't clear the ball. A nice touch from Tony Calvert lets in Mark Butler, a former Wycombe Wanderers player who was Aldershot's leading scorer last season. Half-time, 0-2. On the hour, a free kick offers Bermerton a way back. Mark Savage doesn't need telling that he should have scored. Contrast that with Aldershot's free kick. Tony Calvert onto Andy Russell's head. John Humphrey scores. 2 minutes from time, with Harlequins down to 10 men after a sending off, Mark Butler makes it 4-0. Aldershot over the first hurdle and heading for Brockenhurst in the next round.
4 is enough. You only need to we'll win 1-0 anyway. 1-0 every week will do me. But yeah, I think the last time I was involved in the FA Cup, I was playing in it a couple of years ago, and this is a different kettle of fish altogether. Started right at the very bottom, but a win's a win.
For Bermerton Heath Harlequins, back to the Wessex League via a trip to the bank with the biscuit tin. Proceeds from a record gate of 1,035.
1,035, that Aldershot gate a fortnight ago. That was 400 better than any other FA Cup attendance that day.